On the Afterwards podcast this week, New York Times Pulitzer Prize winning journalist Maureen Dowd talks about her book, Notorious. The book is a collection of long-form celebrity profiles she has written for the New York Times and other publications. The chapters include conversations with Hollywood legends, media moguls, comedians, and others. David Axelrod interviewed Maureen Dowd in September at the Printers Row Lit Fest in Chicago. Mr. Axelrod was a senior advisor to President Barack Obama and until 2023, director of the Chicago Institute of Politics. He is now a regular contributor on CNN.
Thanks to all you. Welcome to, in case there's any confusion about it, the world's greatest city. Always great to have you here.
No, can you guys hear me? Okay, I absolutely agree. Okay, I absolutely agree it's the world's greatest city.
So, Maureen, I think most of the people here are fans of your column. They read your column religiously. Is that a fair to... And you're very prominently known. You're, I would say, not just the best of the times, but the best of our times. Your columns are really brilliant and incisive in literature. I mean all these things, but I'm also auditioning to be a member of the president's cabinet. So I'm working on my fawning thing. But this collection, this is not columns. This is an entirely different thing. Yeah. They're called portraits, and if you read this book, that's exactly the right word, because Maureen paints pictures of people that are so true that you feel like you know them. But tell me about column writing versus profile writing.
Okay, tell me if you can't hear me. I'm very nervous because David can be very sneaky. He's starting very nice, but we'll see. From the very beginning of my career, I covered politics, and I also wanted to do longer pieces on other cultural figures, like people in Hollywood. And, it always struck me that Washington and Hollywood were twin capitals of illusion and box office and sometimes, like with Trump, makeup, So I thought it was interesting I always regarded when I cover politics or Hollywood, I'm doing it thinking of my studies in Shakespeare, because Shakespeare specializes in people at the top of their game, and whether they succeed at that or whether, as always in the tragedies, they become their own worst enemy. And so I'm very interested how people handle power. Do they do it gracefully, or does imposter syndrome come out and they implode? So that's why. And then when Silicon Valley came along, that's a third capital of illusion, deep fakes, and clicks. So all three of them, I triangulate there.
I want to stick with the sort of the writing process, but I just have to say for 1 second, because you mentioned Washington. I mean, you can't work in Washington and notice this sort of symbiosis between, Hollywood and Washington. But it struck me that, my buddy Paul Begala once said that politics is show business for ugly people.
We didn't like that.
Yeah.
Native Washingtonians.
I stand here as proof of
like
the concept.
That. No.
But what strikes me is that there are probably far too many people who go into politics because they want to be a celebrity. They want to be famous. What was striking to me in your book is that I think there are a lot of people who go into, particularly into the performing arts, as a kind of refuge. That's a place where they go where they don't have to be themselves, and they're very introspective. So you do these profiles oftentimes when they're promoting something. They're not real eager to do it. It's fundamentally different than politicians who probably are calling all the time because they want attention.
Yeah, and to your point, you know, it used to be when Ronald Reagan became president, and George Murphy became a senator, that was a really big deal because that had never happened before, that actors would be in politics, and they really had to kind of prove themselves. And then there was a whole book written on the symbiosis between Gary Hart and Warren Beatty. Like Gary Hart liked Warren Beatty's glamour and Warren Beatty liked Gary Hart's power. And so they both poles were attracted to each other. But now I feel like entertainment and politics has totally fused. And, you know, I'll be interested to see after Trump, people, you know, have gotten used to this P.T. Barnum on steroids thing. And will they always want some level of entertainment from their politics? And it's interesting because Trump thought about going into show business, and he was thinking of applying to the University of California Film School. And I think he produced some Broadway plays maybe. So he, you know, is very much the entertainer.
Well, he's running the Kennedy Center now. Right?
Yeah. Yes, but that's exactly why he wants to run the Kennedy Center. So we went over there the first day, and he made this big speech about the first time he saw funnily enough, he and George W. Bush have the same favorite play, Cats. And he was talking about the first time he saw Cats, and he saw the male dancers in their glistening gold tights, and he was overwhelmed, and he just has to bring Cats to the Kennedy Center.
I would have thought Cat Burglars would have been his favorite, but the thing about some of the Hollywood people and the performers, really stars that you interviewed, is that you get them to really open up, and they don't really want to open up. Your style of, I mean, I'm partial to it because, and maybe I've stolen from it, because when I do podcasts, I don't want, talking points are death. When someone starts talking in talking points, you know you're dead. So you write a little bit about this in the introduction, but talk about how you get people to open up.
Well, this is funny. It's hard to believe now, but I was the one who pioneered asking politicians, like, what TV show do you watch? Do you like opera? Do you like ballet? Who is your favorite actress? I did a culture interview with Bush Sr. and George W. Bush, and when I asked George W. Bush what his favorite thing in culture was, he said baseball. So that tells you something, too. And then
that would have been enough to make me a Republican.
And then Bush Sr. confessed that he'd never really seen one of Ronald Reagan's movies, and he was his vice president. And he tried to watch a Western on TV one night, but he fell asleep. So, as David said, politicians and movie stars are that's kind of why also I love talking to Silicon Valley people, because they're scientists, so they don't have speech chunks ready to go. But anyway, the reason I did the culture interviews was to get them off of their usual topics so you could kind of see what they were like as human beings. For instance, Michael Dukakis had a really hard time with it. I'm like, well, what do you do for fun? And he looked at me and he goes, black mulch. And I said, black mulch, what do you do with it? He said, I put it on my tomato plants. And that was about as lively as it got. So you can, if you get them off the subject, and that's why with a lot of the stars and technology people, I do a thing at the end called Confirm and Deny, which is named after an old Don Amici movie. And it's not like Truth or Dare. I'm not looking for some crazy thing. I'm just trying to get them off of their usual answers, so give them a chance to be funny or charming or whatever. So there are a lot of those in the book, and they're really fun. The one I love most was I was talking to Jane Fonda. And the whole confirm and deny thing is sort of da-da, like you'll just say something to them that might not be true and, get their answer. It's just meant to be funny. So I said to her, you had an affair with Che Guevara, which wasn't true. And she looks at me with those big blue eyes, and she goes, no, but I really regret not having one with Marvin Gaye. And I was like, whoa, tell me about that. And she goes, well, when I was married to Tom Hayden, I heard that he had a crush on me, and he kept my picture on his refrigerator, probably in her exercise outfit with the leggings. And she said, but I was married, so I didn't do anything about it. And then, I regretted it. And I just said, please tell me he used the phrase sexual healing when he tried to seduce you. But, so you just get weird, funny little things like that.
Do you ask those questions at the beginning of an interview?
Of course not, no. Mm-hmm. No, but it was funny because the worst, he isn't in the book, but the worst one that I did was I got to interview Denzel Washington. And I love him so much as an actor. I just think he is so brilliant. Training Day and Man on Fire are two of my favorite movies. And but he's very, very guarded in person. So no matter what I asked, he'd be like, why are you asking that? So I kind of gave up, and I went to the confirm or deny. I was trying to explain to him, oh, it's silly. And he looks at me just like that corrupt cop in Training Day. And he goes, if it's silly, why are you doing it? But finally, we got on the topic of his favorite ice cream, and I saw the Denzel smile, and it was worth everything.
So you spend a lot of time with these subjects, a lot of time, hours and hours, and sometimes on different days you'll spend more time with them, and you're probing some of the kind of watershed events in their life, and some of them are sad. I mean, you tried to talk to Paul Newman about the loss of his son. And I want to ask you about that. How do you? How much research do you have to do to get to those points? Do you know where you're going with those things? How much do you know about these people before you start talking?
Well, I try to do as much research as I can, but you never know, is somebody going to be exactly like they are on the screen or the exact opposite? For instance, Larry David is sort of just the same, but not as much of a jerk. I mean, but we had dinner at this nice restaurant in LA, the San Vicente Bungalows, and he got a cocktail, and I could see him looking. He just there was a piece of celery in it, and he just kept looking and looking like he does on the show, and it was clearly agitating him. And finally, he looks around, and he throws it in a planter. So he's the same. He just gets agitated about crazy things. And then Al...
Did you ever figure out why?
Well, because basically everything in life is, a lot of these guys couldn't get the girl they wanted in junior high. And they got very angry. And then later, they get to be really rich and popular, and they can get any girl they want, but they're still angry about that cheerleader. That happens in politics, too.
I don't know that I can attest the fact that not everybody who didn't get the girl in junior high becomes a comic. So
did that happen to you?
Yeah. But anyway, But
Al
well,
Pacino.
my experience with comics has been
Oh, yeah.
my experience with comics has been that they often have sort of a broken experience in
Yeah.
their childhood. I mean, and they don't want to talk about it. And humor is a defense
Yeah.
that they've
But
developed.
Lauren, I did one of these pieces on Lorne Michaels fairly recently, and he says a lot of the comedians on SNL have had, very traumatic childhoods or things happen to them. And that's why, he has that distant, stoic kind of demeanor, because he does not want to go down the rabbit hole of being their daddy and reparenting them. And he's like, he'll be the daddy to a certain extent, but not past, because when Chris Farley would start using heroin right in Saturday Night Live, and John Belushi and cocaine and speedballs, he wants to be as supportive as he can, but he just can't follow them past a certain point.
You're going to talk about Al Pacino.
Oh, I was just going to say about Al Pacino, that's a good example of someone who's the exact opposite. So I met him at Joe Allen's, this famous Broadway restaurant. And, in person, he's very kind of tentative and vulnerable. And, you're expecting like a killer. And then he's just like a little, teddy bear.
But isn't that the thing where, isn't one of the appeals of acting that you get to be who you're not?
Yeah.
So,
But that's what Warren Beatty had a great line about politics once, where he said he thought the reason some politicians, I think he was talking about Clinton, some politicians act out is because they're like actors, but they have to only play the same role over and over again, and it makes them crazy in the end. There was Eugene O'Neill's father was an actor, and he only played the Count of Monte Cristo like over and over and over again. And Warren Beatty thought that just would make you nuts.
but he didn't become president.
No.
Yeah. Remember Roosevelt telling, I mean, you would remember, we've heard that Roosevelt told Orson Welles, what does it feel like to be the second greatest actor in America?
But I feel like Barack Obama, the people I picked for this book have the quality that they burn through the screen, the Hollywood people. And I think Barack Obama had that. So it works in politics too. But did he think of himself as a performer, or no, he didn't like that?
I don't know. No, I mean, I think he understood that he was good at that. I think he enjoyed repartee, he enjoyed the speech making, but I don't think he defined himself that way. I don't think he thought of himself that way. So by executive order, you have to mention Trump at least a dozen times in any public event. But there are two profiles in here that, were written 8 years ago, but seem very relevant today. One was a really spectacular piece you wrote about Elon Musk. And it was really in the context of his crusade to kind of curb the worst potential of AI. I mean, and so AI is a lot of what that piece is. And in that piece, he said something that was really striking, because you were talking to him about the people in Silicon Valley felt like, smart people of goodwill could contain the worst side of AI. And he said it's great when the emperor is Marcus Aurelius. It's not so great when the emperor is Caligula. And then, like a few years later, he signed up with Caligula. So what happened to him?
Well, it is funny because Peter Thiel, I have in the book too, and Elon Musk have spent a lot of money and time devoted to saving the planet, or in Elon's case, also finding another planet we can go to if this one is taken over by killer robots. Elon always says he wants to die on Mars, just not on impact. But it's ironic that these two guys who were all about saving the planet are signed up with the most dangerous man on the planet. But there you have it.
Well, one thing, and I'm looking around because I don't know exactly who's signaling me on time, but all right, keep going. I'm listening to her. Well, in the Peter Thiel profile, he actually talks about Musk, and he talks about. I think I have it here because it was so striking. I also have these stickers in here so you know that I actually read the book. Listen, Maureen would check something like that. So,
Is it about the poker
the car
game?
crash.
The car crash. Yeah, these two anecdotes in the Peter Thiel profile are very telling about Elon Musk.
So let me just read it, and then you pick it up. He recalls a story from his and Mr. Musk's PayPal days when Mr. Musk joined the engineering team's poke. Then he said, then there was the time that they were driving in Mr. Musk's McLaren F1 car, the fastest car in the world. It hits an embankment, achieved liftoff, made a 360-degree horizontal turn, crashed, and was destroyed. It was a miracle neither of us was hurt, Mr. Thiel said. I wasn't wearing a seatbelt, which is not advisable. Elon's first comment was, wow, Peter, that was really intense. And then it was, I had to read all these stories about people who made money and bought sports cars and crashed them, but I knew it would never happen to me, so I didn't get any insurance.
Yeah.
I feel as some, just the contemporary version of Elon, I feel like we're all in the back seat of this car.
Yeah. Those two anecdotes are all you need to know about Elon's performance in Washington. And the other one is that Peter, they founded PayPal together. So Peter asked him to join, do you want to come to the Engineers Weekly poker game? And Elon got in the game, and he was betting everything he had on every single hand. And afterwards, Peter goes, why were you doing that? And Elon goes, well, I've never played poker before. So, there is an incredible recklessness there that you saw in Washington. But this piece I did about Elon was in 2017, and he was the only one in Silicon Valley who was trying to figure out if AI turned on us, which everyone in Silicon Valley thinks is going to happen. They've already resigned themselves to this. They're not sure if it will turn on us kind of inadvertently, if it will, let's say, it's been ordered to get your coffee every morning, and you try and stop it, and it kills you because the order is to get the coffee.
If you become a tea drinker.
Yeah. If you switch to tea, exactly. Or if it will, they think maybe Google, they have this crazy Dracula's lab in London, and they think if evil AI lights up, it'll probably be at Google. But they've all, resigned themselves, as Steve Wozniak told me, to being the family pets, to the robot. It isn't really robot, it's AI overlords. This is the lead of the Elon Musk story, is that he was meeting with Demis Hassabis, who's the genius who runs the Dracula's lab in London. And he was telling Hassabis, the reason we're colonizing Mars is in case AI turns on us, we'll have somewhere else to go and escape. And Demis Hassabis looks at Elon and says, don't you understand that AI can follow us to Mars? And Elon is like, I hadn't thought about that. So, yeah, everyone in Silicon Valley thinks that Steve Wozniak said he's actually feeding his dog filet mignon because he, thinks he will be the dog when the AI turns on us. He'll be the little pet. And the rest of them, it's like we're mice in their experiments. And we long ago missed the opportunity to get the kill switch. But anyway, that's what Elon was going for.
So have a good day, everybody.
Yeah. That's what Elon was going for. He was going for the kill switch, and Zuckerberg and Larry Page and everyone made fun of him and said, you're being hysterical because there are billions and billions and Elon's about to be a trillionaire. There's all this money to be made, so nobody cared about the kill switch.
And the thing that occurs to me when you talk about all of this, this was a very heroic, by the way. I mean, you depicted all of his eccentricities as we just described, but it was a heroic story. But he was partnered up with Sam Altman at the time in OpenAI, and they were crusaders together, and now they're mortal enemies in the AI wars.
Yeah, if you are following this at all, there's about to be a trial, but I went when OpenAI was just starting. They didn't even have an office. They had borrowed somebody's house to start it, and it just seemed like 8 super young kids. It seemed crazy. And now it's ChatGPT, and it's reshaped life everywhere, from school to work to love life. I did a column today how young women are using ChatGPT to analyze when men don't return their texts, what it means. So I saw them in this borrowed house, like starting something that is now the biggest thing in the country, I think. So Elon and Sam...
I can say them a lot of time. It's not good.
No. Elon and Sam were aligned then on getting the kill switch. But then Sam realized how many millions there were, and he decided to change OpenAI to profit rather than nonprofit. And Sam Altman is very adorable looking, like a Disney character. And, he's become very close to Trump and Melania. She had a AI thing this week, and it's funny because Melania does kind of look like a gorgeous fembot. And so she was leading this AI discussion, and she started with "the robots are here." So
just the other night, the president convened a meeting of all of these tech bros together.
Yeah, it was part of this thing that Melania's in charge of.
Yeah, but it strikes me, I mean, they put their chips on Trump. Yeah. Peter Thiel helped lead that.
Well, this is the crazy thing, one crazy thing about Trump, because he's 79, he doesn't even know how to email or go online, really. There's a woman, a beautiful young woman at the White House who's nicknamed the human printer, who follows him around and prints out positive stories about him. And then he'll scrawl on it in his black Sharpie to the author, and then they'll mail it. So he himself is very old technology, but he used Twitter to win, and now he has aligned himself with all the Silicon Valley guys, and they realize, when I was in Silicon Valley in 2017, they didn't even know Washington existed. It was like some little city over on the East Coast, because they thought they were doing the most important thing on Earth, which was creating a new species. AI. They are creating a new species. But then when Trump got in, they realized, wow, we can buy the government. And that was a new thought to them. So then they all came, and they were there on Inauguration Day. They were there the other night because they could buy in and stop the regulation, which would help get us a kill switch.
Yeah. It's funny to think that they thought it was a new thought that you could buy the government.
Yeah.
But he's made it more accessible for sure. But what struck me is their same hubris about how they can somehow navigate this AI thing and avoid or postpone what Elon was concerned about. Hang on one second. it seems to me it stretches to Trump as well. I mean, they believe that they can control him.
Yeah.
And just as
No, because Jaron Lanier, this wonderful musician who helped found Silicon Valley, he created virtual reality. He figured that out, and I had breakfast with him recently, and he goes, "It's only a matter of time before they bring out the Trump bot." He goes, "It would be incredibly easy for the lords of the cloud to create a Trump bot. And suddenly we would think we'd be seeing Trump, but we'd be seeing their creation."
How many would buy one of those? I want to hear it. Yeah, but I mean, the thing about AI is that ultimately, without the kill switch, it will overcome us. And they may be betrayed by Trump as well, because he may not be controllable in the way that they think they are. But talk about
Trump is definitely not controllable.
Peter Thiel, you talked to him right after Trump got elected, and he had kind of shocked everyone because he was a gay entrepreneur from Silicon Valley who ended up in Trump's camp, spoke at his convention, and in it, he made a lot of forecasts that now seem incredibly naive. I mean, he was confident that the Supreme Court wasn't going to upset Roe versus Wade, and that there was and he went through a whole bunch of things that people said about Trump that now turn out to be true. Have you revisited any of this with him?
Yeah, I talked to him, and Peter Thiel is a super contrarian. He has a computer program in his head that no matter what you say or he says, he's immediately flipping it around and saying the reverse. So he spoke at Trump's convention, and a lot of gays gave him a hard time about that. And but he did not want to be involved in a high-profile way this time. But J.D. Vance worked for him in Silicon Valley, so he's in a low-key way, supporting J.D. Vance. And the combination of Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance is something to think about. And and it's funny because right now, while we're here, Peter Thiel is giving a 4-part lecture series in San Francisco about the Antichrist. And, he's a partner.
So he's still talking about Trump.
Yeah, he's a partner in Palantir, which is, if you guys want to look it up online, Alex Karp is the partner of Peter Thiel in Palantir, and I did one of these pieces on him. And Palantir is a data mining company that is in the war in Israel. It's all over the U.S. government. And, so Peter Thiel is already regarded as a really scary figure, and now he's giving lectures on the Antichrist. So,
So in this book are profiles of people who I never would have, I think all you need to do is look at me. I'm not a Tom Ford guy. I don't follow him or Diane Furstenberg and it was all really interesting. And in each one of these profiles, there was not a lot of judgment on your part. There was commentary, but you came away with a true picture of who these people were. And oftentimes you found things about them that were appealing and interesting. But there was one guy in the book who you just scorched. And that's Kevin Costner. Mm-hmm. And he comes across as a complete dick, basically. To explain why and how he differed from the others.
A lot of these profiles are, and there's one of Eddie Murphy, when a star gets to the top. And as I said, that's the moment of truth. Are they going to be a jerk, or are they going to be a good person, use their powers for good or evil? And I interviewed Kevin Costner at the top of his stardom when he was starring in Robin Hood. And he was very agitated. and we were walking to the hotel where the interview was, and it was in New Orleans because he was making the JFK movie then. And there were these adorable two women, senior citizens, on the corner who very sweetly asked if they could take a picture with him. And he just lost it with them. I mean, it was like watching somebody trampling on kittens. He's like, how dare you, can't you see I'm in an interview? And I'm like, the interview hasn't started, Mr. Costner. You can, he was like, they're being so rude, and it was horrible. And then he was just in a really upset. I think he was upset because the critics were already criticizing his accent, his English accent in Robin Hood. And he was just in a bad mood. And so he was in a bad mood throughout the interview. And then at the end, he squeezed my neck and he goes, don't worry, everybody has a bad day sometimes. And I'm like, you're the one who's having a bad day, not me. And he said, are you going to play this tape for your girlfriends? And I said, well, I interviewed Paul Newman, and I managed not to play it for my girlfriends. So I think I can refrain with you. He was just, I was in love with him on the screen. I love No Way Out. I love all his movies, and I still think he's great on the screen. But as someone to interview, he was really unpleasant. But just to finish with Tom Ford, here's my test of whether you were like Tom Ford. Do you know there are 50 shades of black?
No, I did not.
Yeah, there are. But I did want to say one word about Tom Ford because, again, what's fun about it is you go into it, and I just thought Tom Ford would be really intimidating, and I would have nothing in common because I'm not. I'm like David. I'm not really a fashion person. And then I went to the interview at San Vicente Bungalows in LA, and Tom Ford had gotten there an hour early to rearrange the furniture in the hotel room. I mean, this is how much of a kind of aesthetic control freak he is. And he was pulling a plant from one side to the other. He had ordered a different color flowers. And I realized that he was incredibly sweet. And I realized that having an aesthetic sensibility that's that finely tuned can be very painful because when he looks around, nothing ever looks beautiful enough. Nothing. Like he told me he once painted his Santa Fe house in a color, and he looked at it for 3 days and couldn't take it, and he had to paint it white again. I mean, it's like a violin that is just incredibly tuned. And usually I never know what to do with fashion people, but I had Pop for a red chiffon Tom Ford dress for the interview. So we did the interview, and I got on a plane back to Washington. I was reading the New York Post, and it had a picture of the actress Priyanka Chopra in the same dress. And I realized I had had my corset belt on backwards. Like with the hooks in the back and the laces in the front. And so when
she did.
No. Well, I don't think so. When I got to Washington, I called Tom Ford, and I'm like, Mr. Ford, did you notice that I had on your dress backwards? And there was this long, pained silence. And he goes, yes. And then I realized the whole interview, he just wanted to jump across the table and switch my belt around.
But good of him to. So they just told me I've got 5 minutes left here. So I want to do what you do because I thought it was a cool thing to do. And I want to ask a few confirm or deny questions.
I told you, sneaky.
And your inaugural after party. Wasn't this at the was so hot that Bruce Springsteen couldn't get in.
This is what happens when you never give parties. You don't know how to give them. And I was on the road with David covering Obama for a year, basically. And that's when we got to be friends. And I was so excited when he won, and I had house guests, and I said, we're all going to get up and get champagne and croissants and go down to the Lincoln Memorial and celebrate. And so I woke up all my house guests who really did not want to go. We go down to the Lincoln Memorial, and this big beefy guy stops us, and he goes, you can't go in. And I said, are you with the National Park Service? He goes, no. I go, are you with the DC Police? No. I go, Secret Service? No. He goes, Beyonce security. And she had performed the night before for the big thing, and they were still there for some reason at 5 a.m., so I didn't get to see the Lincoln Memorial. But we did have a party, and it's a legendary party in Washington. It's like the worst party that was ever held in Washington. And Larry King came up to me, and he goes, why are you having a party in this little doll house? And I'm trying to think what funny. Oh, I had my nephews bartending, and they didn't know how to make drinks. So if someone came and asked for a martini, they would just hand them the vodka bottle. And everyone got really drunk, and
Don't forget
I think
Springsteen
there
here.
was one baby conceived that night in my house.
All right, well, let's hear more about that. What about Springsteen? He didn't get in, huh?
Oh, yeah, Springsteen. So what happened was, since I never give parties, I didn't know, how to deal with the VIPs or whatever. So all these young Politico reporters, like Jonathan Martin and, junior reporters who weren't even invited, came early and took up all the room in the house. And then when Bruce Springsteen and Tom Hanks and the publishers of the New York Times and Washington Post got there, they couldn't get in. And it's like, what's wrong with this picture, right? So Tom Hanks was outside. It was super cold. And Tom Hanks was outside screaming, Maureen, throw me out a beer. It was just like worst party ever.
All right. You have a 68 vintage Mustang, is that true?
65.
Oh, 65.
Yeah.
Still have it? Mm-hmm. You drive it?
Well, it's always in the shop, so no, but I love it dearly. People, guys leave love notes on it for the car. Like, I love you, under the windshield wiper.
You listen to the Irish actor Cillian Murphy reading bedtime stories to help you sleep?
True. He has on the Calm app, he narrates a train ride through Ireland, and he has the most beautiful voice with the Irish accent like my dad had.
Well, look, here's the last one for you. A lot of folks who know you well think you're occasionally a pain in the butt, but the best friend a person can have. And you don't have to answer that.
Thanks, I think.
But I can't say enough about you as I said what I said about you as a writer. What I know is of you as a human being, and I'm grateful for your friendship. So it's always good to be with you.
Me too, David.
Thank you.
This conversation was taped in September and is just one of many great events about nonfiction books that you can find every weekend on C-SPAN 2. Check out booktv.org for more information. Next week on this podcast, George Selgin on his book False Dawn, The New Deal and the Promise of Recovery, 1933 through 1947.